The night settled quietly over the city, wrapping the skyline in a cool haze as streetlights flickered on one by one. Inside St. Jude Medical Center, everything moved as expected. The rhythm of routine echoed through sterile hallways. Nurses walked briskly under fluorescent lights. Doctors murmured over patient charts, and the soft beeping of life support machines pulsed steadily behind closed doors. It was the kind of night that felt predictable, unremarkable. But then, without warning, a deep, violent crash shattered the front lobby. Glass trembled in its frames. Chairs skidded across the polished floor. A hollow, thunderous thud echoed through the reception area like something immense had collided with the world. Everyone froze. A nurse dropped her clipboard. "What was that?" she whispered, eyes wide as a security guard bolted toward the front entrance. He didn't make it in time. The glass doors exploded inward with a deafening roar. Shards rained down like ice, scattering across the white tile. From behind the wreckage, a dark silhouette emerged, broad, low to the ground, and steady as stone. Gasps filled the lobby. It was a German shepherd, but not just any dog. This one was massive, jet black, its fur thick and dusted with dirt. Muscles rippled beneath its coat with every deliberate step. Its eyes cold, focused, scanned the hallway ahead. There was no panic in them, no rage, only purpose. The dog didn't stop. It walked through the lobby and disappeared down the main corridor as if it had come with a mission only it understood. The German shepherd moved with eerie precision, its nails clicking sharply against the sterile floors. Nurses and patients pressed themselves against the walls, stunned and unsure whether to scream, run, or simply stay still. The hospital security staff attempted to intervene, but the dog didn't bark, growl, or charge. It simply walked steadily like it had done this 100 times before. One of the orderlies stepped forward, arms. "Hey, stop right there." The shepherd didn't even glance his way. Past him without breaking stride. Down the corridor it went, passing doors and stations, ignoring gasps, alarms, and confusion. Its gaze was fixed on something far ahead, unseen by everyone else. The staff scrambled behind it, calling in reports, trying to figure out how the animal had gotten through multiple entrances and checkpoints. But deep down, no one dared touch it. Something about its presence felt different, like it didn't belong to the world outside, like it had come through the walls of fate itself. On the 3rd floor, room 207, waited. Inside, Nathan Cole sat quietly beside his daughter's bed, her face pale under the hospital's cold light. Machines beeped a dull rhythm behind. He had stopped praying weeks ago. Hope had faded into silence. Then the hallway trembled with a new weight. Nurse cried out somewhere down the corridor. Nathan looked toward the door, just as it was flung open with startling force. And there it was, the shepherd, standing tall in the doorway, chest rising and falling, eyes fixed not on Nathan but on the fragile girl lying motionless on the bed. It didn't move, didn't make a sound. It had arrived. Nathan Cole rose from the chair as if in a trance, his knees stiff, heart pounding. The room was still, too. Still except for the deep, steady breaths of the dog at the door. He hadn't seen Ranger in months. The farm was hours away, locked, fenced, guarded. And yet, here he was. Nathan's voice cracked Ranger. The shepherd didn't respond. It stood there like a statue, watching Emily. Dr. Marcus Everett, the attending physician, had just left minutes earlier after another hard conversation. "Nathan," he had said gently, "we've done everything we can. Emily hasn't responded to treatment. No brain activity for weeks. I think it's time we talk about letting her go." Letting her go. Those words echoed now, like an unwanted hymn in Nathan's ears. He sat there for minutes after the doctor left, unable to move, his hands limp in his lap. The sterile smell of antiseptic seemed stronger than usual, suffocating even. His daughter, the light of his life, his only child, was slipping further away, and there was nothing more he could offer, no deal to make, no promise to bargain with, just silence. He had poured everything into saving her. Savings gone, land mortgaged, every possible specialist consulted. Still, his daughter lay before him, silent and unchanged. Nathan turned toward the dog. "How did you find her?" He didn't expect an answer, but, standing there, seeing Rare's eyes locked on Emily's still body, something stirred in him. A flicker, a question he hadn't allowed himself to ask. Was this a coincidence or something more? The shepherd stepped into the room, slow and deliberate. Nathan instinctively reached out, unsure if he should stop him, but didn't. Ranger padded over to Emily's bedside and sat down. For a long moment, no one breathed. Then he gently laid his head on the edge of the mattress. Right beside her hand, Nathan's throat tightened. Something was happening. Something the doctors couldn't explain. Nathan stared at Ranger as if seeing a ghost. The last time he saw that dog was before winter, back on the farm where Ranger had always belonged. Strong, loyal, intelligent. But more than that, he was family, especially to Emily. The memory came flooding back without invitation. It had been years ago. Brutal snowstorm had rolled in faster than any forecast predicted. Winds howled like wild animals, and the cold was so sharp it bit through layers of wool and leather. Nathan had been out, checking the fences, making sure the sheep were secure when he saw something curled near the edge of the pasture. Shivering ball of fur, barely alive. He almost left it, almost. But Emily, just 7 years old at the time, was waiting on the porch when he returned, her eyes wide as she spotted the pup in his coat. "He's freezing, Daddy," she gasped, pulling the bundle into her tiny arms. "We have to help him." Nathan had tried to explain the odds the pup probably wouldn't make it through the night. But Emily didn't listen. She wrapped him in her blanket, fed him warm milk, and sat by the fire with him all night. Against every expectation, the puppy survived. Emily named him Ranger. "He's brave," she said, petting his ears. "And he always finds his way back." And she was right. He grew up strong, protective, devoted to her like no other creature Nathan had ever known. Now, years later, the same dog, her dog, was sitting beside her hospital bed, watching over her once again. Nathan's hands trembled. How had he come all this way? And more importantly, how had he known? Ranger sat quietly at Emily's bedside, his head resting near her hand. He didn't bark, didn't whine. He simply stayed still, like he knew this was sacred ground. Nathan stood frozen, barely breathing. The monitors beside Emily continued their soft, methodical beeping. For months, those numbers had been lifeless. Stable but unchanged, a flat rhythm. That offered no hope. But then something shifted. The heart monitor flickered. Just once, a nurse passing by paused and glanced at the screen. She stepped closer, puzzled. "Did you see that?" she asked. Nathan didn't answer. His eyes were locked on Ranger, who remained unmoving except for the slow rise and fall of his chest. Then it happened. Again. A flutter, a spike in the pulse. It was subtle but unmistakable. The monitor blinked with a quiet insistence, as if the very air had thickened. The digital lines pulsed, not like mere data, but like a whisper from another realm, a heartbeat too delicate, too intentional to be coincidence. There was something sacred in that flicker, something no machine could fully explain. The nurse leaned in. "Could be just artifact," she muttered half to herself. "Machine interference happens. Sometimes." But Nathan knew better. He felt it in his gut, in his bones, in the place deep inside a father that never stops hoping, even when everyone else has. He stepped closer, eyes glued to the screen. The rhythm wasn't wildly different, but it was different, alive. Like something dormant was waking up. Another nurse entered the room, followed by Dr. Everett, who was quickly briefed. "Vitals are fluctuating," the nurse told him. "Slight but noticeable." Dr. Everett frowned. "It's likely just random neural firing reflexes. Her condition hasn't changed." Nathan turned to face him. "And what if it's not? What if she's trying to come back?" The doctor sighed, voice heavy with years of worn-down hope. "Nathan, I understand, but I've seen this before. It's not a sign." But Ranger lifted his head then just slightly and let out a single deep breath, a low huff that seemed to cut through every word of doubt in the room. To Nathan it was clear the dog knew something they didn't. Nathan stood by the bed, fists clenched, eyes bouncing between the heart monitor and the dog still stationed by his daughter's side. He wanted to believe desperately, but the logic, the science, the countless reports stacked in his home office all pointed to the same cold conclusion. Emily wasn't coming back. And yet here stood this dog, no, this guardian, breaking into a hospital as if summoned by something far greater than instinct. Dr. Everett placed a hand on Nathan's shoulder. "You've done more than most parents could ever do. We all reach a point where letting go becomes an act of love." Nathan pulled away. Love. Letting go. That wasn't love. Not after what he just saw. He'd watched animals die before on the farm, in war. But this didn't feel like death. It felt like interruption, like someone had put her life on pause. He took a deep breath, then turned to the doctor. "I want to see every report, every scan, every medication she's been given in the last 4 weeks." Dr. Everett's expression stiffened. "Nathan, we monitor everything carefully. Nothing has changed. There's no need." "Here is now." His voice was low, but resolute. The doctor hesitated, then nodded, albeit reluctantly. As soon as Everett left, Nathan pulled out his phone and scrolled to a number he hadn't called in years. His finger hovered over the screen for a moment. Then he pressed it. The phone rang 3 times. "Foster speaking. I need your eyes on something," Nathan said. "It's Emily. Something's not right." There was a pause on the other end. Then the reply came, and firm. I'm on my way. Nathan ended the call and looked back at Ranger. The dog hadn't moved. Whatever this was, it wasn't over. When Colonel James Foster stepped into the hospital, the energy in the room shifted. He didn't need to raise his voice or explain himself. His presence alone spoke volumes. Nathan walked him into room 207 in silence. Emily lay as still as ever, unchanged. Machines blinked and beeped softly, a cruel reminder of how long they had been waiting. And beside her, Ranger stayed, perfectly still like a statue with a beating heart. Foster took the medical records from Nathan and sat down by the window. He flipped through them with sharp, deliberate care. For 20 long minutes, he read in silence, analyzing not just the medications and treatments, but the timing, the dosages, the pattern of Emily's decline. Finally, he exhaled. Slowly. Everything here looks correct, he said. Dr. Everett followed standard protocol. There's no mistake. The words hit Nathan like a slow, invisible collapse. He had come here bracing for a fight, for a name to blame, a reason why this had happened. But there was no fault, no error, just the brutal silence of truth. And that hurt even more. Nathan lowered his head, trying not to let the disappointment settle in too quickly. But Foster wasn't done. There is something, though, he added. It's not a solution, not even a treatment. Technically, it's a compound I helped develop years ago, still experimental. It was designed to stimulate low neural activity in cases where the body is stable but the brain isn't responding. We never got far in trials, just a few test subjects. Nathan looked up. And you think it might work on Emily? Foster shook his head gently. I don't know, but her profile, her vitals, her responses, it fits the window we theorized. Barely, there's no guarantee, not even a real expectation. But it could be something. Nathan turned to look at Ranger. The dog didn't move, but his eyes met Nathan's with something deeper than instinct. They were calm, steady like the eyes of someone who had already made peace with what needed to be done. Nathan's chest ached. It wasn't just loyalty that brought Ranger here. It was knowing. Somehow this animal had sensed the truth long before any of them could. And in that gaze, Nathan didn't find answers. He found a question. Do you still believe? He swallowed hard, then nodded slowly. If there's even the slightest chance, we take it, Foster. Good. I'll get what I need. The compound arrived in a small glass vial. Nothing more than a few milliliters of clear liquid. Colonel Foster carried it, like it weighed far more than it looked. The kind of weight that didn't rest on the hands, but on the heart. Inside room 207, the lights hummed softly, monitors beeped in steady rhythm, and Ranger lay quietly beside Emily's bed, never moving. Far from her side, Nathan stood at the foot of the bed, arms crossed tight against his chest, holding himself together by sheer will. Foster checked the dose one final time. No promises, he said. Just the smallest chance. Nathan nodded. That's enough. Foster rolled up Emily's sleeve and inserted the needle with precision. The medication flowed in silently. No alarms, no sudden beeps, just stillness. And then they waited. A minute passed. Then another. Nothing. The heart monitor continued its same flat rhythm. Emily's Breathing remained unchanged. Her hands lay limp on the sheets, pale and motionless. Nathan stared at her face, searching for anything. A flutter of lashes, a muscle twitch, a sign, but there was nothing. He stepped back, slowly, and sank into the chair in the corner. His whole body felt heavy, like it had finally given up holding in months of fear, grief, and unanswered prayers. He let his face fall into his hands, and for a moment he was just a father who had lost too much. It was over. And then Ranger moved. The dog's ears twitched. His head tilted. Emily's fingers moved. Nathan looked up, confused, afraid to hope. But it wasn't his imagination. Her hand twitched again. Her chest rose deeper this time. The monitor let out a sharper beep. He stumbled to his feet, heart pounding so hard it hurt, and then her eyes opened. Her gaze wandered until it found the dog beside her. A faint, raspy whisper. Ranger. Nathan dropped to his knees beside her bed, his breath catching like a gasp underwater. His body shook, not from fear, but from the weight of finally letting go and being given back more than he dared to hope for. Tears spilled down his cheeks, but he didn't try to wipe them. He just stared, as if trying to memorize every second of this moment before it disappeared. His hand found hers, warm now, gently responsive, and all he could manage to say over and over in a cracked whisper was, "Thank you. Oh God, thank you." He didn't care if it was medicine, miracle, or both. His little girl had come back. The days that followed were filled with quiet care and steady recovery. Emily's body was weak, but her spirit, though still soft-spoken, was unmistakably present. Every movement was a milestone, every word a gift. Dr. Everett remained close through it all. He watched with a humble silence, no longer as the lead voice in the room, but as someone bearing witness to a truth he hadn't expected. That sometimes medicine isn't about certainty. It's about courage, timing, and trust. "I didn't know this compound existed," he told Colonel Foster one evening. Foster gave a small nod. Wasn't ready, but she was. There were no debates, no defenses, only shared respect for the risk they took and the life it returned. Nathan stayed by Emily's side day and night. He didn't ask questions anymore. He didn't need explanations. Watching his daughter open her eyes, hold his hand, and whisper a joke for the first time in months, that was all the proof he'd ever need. And through it all, Ranger never left her. When she cried in the middle of the night, he laid his head on her lap. When she laughed finally, freely, he wagged his tail like it was the most natural sound in the world. On the morning of her release, the hospital doors opened to a warm breeze and clear skies. Emily stepped out, slower than she once had, but stronger than anyone imagined. Nathan held her bag, walking behind her, eyes soft, but she only looked at Ranger. He trotted beside her, not as a miracle but as a friend, a part of her family, one who stood firm through the storm, just like her father did. Neither of them had ever truly let go, and together they crossed the final step, not into an ending, but into a beginning. They had fought for and won with a second chance, walking faithfully beside